Water. Earth. Fire. Air.
If you appreciate the video, you're a big Avatar fan, why don't you smash that like button just like Aang did. Let's get into it. First of all, I just want to say that I'm really excited to actually play Avatar tomorrow, guys, in Magic. I mean, genuinely, these cards looks amazing, okay? Really amazing. You know I'm a big Spider-Man fan, right? And the Spider-Man set was just terrible, right? Everyone hated it, I hated it, it was just the worst, right? Avatar The Last Airbender, immediately have I seen that, my god, these cards looks really well designed. Mechanic style, great design. Lore design from the show, right? Also great, right? I mean, I returned playing Magic after like a 10-year hiatus with a Fantasy. Fantasy also was very well designed. You know, very cool lore, so forth, right? So I'm actually really excited. I was it immediately. I really do looking forward to Avatar. It looks fantastic. The card looks great. I can immediately see, especially, I'm a blue-white player primarily. I'm currently playing a mythic deck, right? Blue-white blink deck. So all the Aang cards, right? The airbending stuff, that's my jam. I am definitely gonna play a lot of these white-blue cards in my current professional deck. Absolutely. And that's coming to the main topic of this video, right? So I'm gonna go over now the top 5 important cards to know about, primarily, right, for drafting, limited, city deck, so forth, right? Side note here, guys, I have gone undefeated, okay, in my last 3 sealed deck in real life in a row now. 3 of them, okay? So I feel a little bit like I have to win tomorrow again, right? It's not that much money, right? But it's like, man, I want to get to a I'm a hat-trick currently, right? So I am, honestly, I am very good with drafting. I just say to be like, oh, I'm so good. No, but generally, I've always been a very good drafter, especially with like sealed deck and so on. I've always been very good. I've won many sealed deck in my life for the last like 20 years. And, you know, when I worked in Hearthstone, on Earthcore, and so I worked on a bunch of card games in my life. And I, of course, spent a lot of time working on, like, you know, drafting, arena, cost cycle, right? Balancing, you know, how much money should you spend, you know, in-game curves and so on, right? So, a lot of that I did on this card game like Hearthstone. I worked on, you know, like, how to monetize it and how hard should it be and so on. So that's my main thing, and I'm a very good card game limited guy. But anyway, I say this because in my previous video, I went over every card in the set, right? Like all the cards. I reviewed every single card, and I feel that it's not, I mean, it's a very long video, but it's not effective because I don't think it's super necessary, right, to go over like all these, you know, whatever, 1/1, 2/2 life like that. So in this video instead, I think it's my 5 top favorite cards. Let's go here. Aang, Swift Savior. This is a very good card in a golden and blue-white. This is an amazing card, really. So I'm gonna cover like use my top 5 cards, right? Explaining why I like them and, you know, how to play with them, right? Giving you some tips and tricks, right? How to like, oh, we can do this thing and that thing, right? So there are some cards, right, that might be, I think especially uncommon cards, that might be amazing if you really think about it. So I'm gonna cover that instead. And hopefully that gives you a better understanding how to play and win in the coming set, right? Instead of going over all this, you know, the basic common cards or whatever, right? Or say, well, this is a rare card, but it's terrible, whatever. So let's get started. And we go just by white, right? And we go, you know, typical color scheme. And immediately, this is probably the best new card in the set. This card is amazing. I am immediately gonna craft 4 of these, right? I'm currently playing Mythic Blue-White, and this card is perfect for my enchantment deck in white-blue, and also in my white deck, right? Because it is a better Oblivion Ring, I guess. But basically, right, a lot of white cards have this effect, where they will exile for 3 mana. So this card is seriously in absurd power creeping to the max. As always, right, some power creep. This is probably the most power creep card here, Aang's Iceberg. It is so good because you already have a bunch of enchantment, right? They will exile a card, right, for 3 mana. It's a very common thing. However, this have flash. Now there is another card that also has flash, the same thing, but that card specifically only removes creatures, right? This thing just removes non-land permanent. This is like a mixture of these 2 cards. It's so much better. And it has waterbending sacrifice. This card is so fantastic. This is honestly the biggest power creep card in the whole set. It's an amazing card. This is an absolute like top pick in every draft limited. So you see it, right? Because again, exiling for 3 mana is like, you know, basically what most white card will do, right? But this card, again, exiles everything. And also, you can sacrifice it and then return what you exiled. If you do that, it means you can exile your own creature, right? So you can exile your guy that has, you know, an entry ability, and then, you know, also get to scry. So it's like, it's incredibly much power creeping, because it does what other cards do, plus scry. It's like, what? Yeah, it's amazing. So number 2 card in white is Airbending Ascension. First and foremost, all the Ascension cards are basically top 5 per color, okay? So you have one for Firebending and Earthbending, so they're all really great, so say that immediately. And this one then, of course, focusing on Airbending, obviously, right? Because it's the air one. And Airbending is you exile a creature, then they can return back later, right? This is very powerful, because for 2 mana, you can remove any opponent creature, right? Like this big guy is gone. They can, of course, pay to replay it, but you can basically remove the big guy, you can swing and kill them, right? You can set right. So that's very, very good. However, this one also means that the more you activate this trigger, right, you can eventually airbend your own stuff, you get it back immediately, and then trigger a retry. So it's a very good, like, just general removal, getting some tempo, or to, you know, you remove your own guy, airbend it back to trigger its effect, maybe draw a card or whatever, right? Or, of course, do it twice. So it's just like a really good card, and absolutely a valuable card to play. Now, the next card is Appa, Steadfast Guardian, of course. Our beloved teammate, the best teammate, clearly. Appa is very similar, right, to the whole, again, airbending. It basically is a creature that jumps in and save your creature, right? So this Appa has flash, so Appa can be played at any time. And this is actually set that I'm playing currently, right? A blue-white mythic player, with I'm playing my Swan, and I'm playing the Kirin, you're playing the Chocobo, and so on, right? And these different cards currently can jump in, save your guy, and return later, right? So Appa does that. That's very, very good. But also, Appa is even better than that, because Appa is like, okay, so first I can save one dude, right? Then every time you do it later, every airbending, you're getting another ally. So it's just very, very powerful. It's a great card. Of course, this is mythic rare card, but this is one of the best cards in the set. And at worst case scenario, right? Really worst case scenario, limited, it is a 3/4, 4/4 for flying, okay? That's pretty good stats. Like 3/4 flying. I mean, worst case scenario, right? You will just flash it out, end of your opponent's 4 turn. You get a 3/4 out flying, you hit it, you know, maybe 2 times before you can stop it. So it's pretty good in limited, just that average body stat for 4 mana as well. So it truly is a mythic rare card, like a really high value mythic rare card. Even if you don't even have so many, like, you know, combination cards, synergy card, this is a good body for 4 mana in limited, so it's a really great card. Now, the next card is Avatar's Wrath. This is a pretty common card in white, though. Usually white will have one Vogue, right? Wrath of God, that old card. Day of Judgement, usually nowadays. They will just like swipe the whole board and kill everything, right? This is very similar to that Avatar's Wrath. You can now just destroy everything. However, this one is actually arguably better than Day of Judgment, because it will swipe away everything, so it cleans the board, right? But one of your guys stays, right? Which makes it way better. So you clean up everything and your biggest dude stay, right? That's incredible. Of course, I know, they can replay their guys later though. But only in the second turn afterward, right? So it's a very weird card. If they could replay their guys the next turn, it would be, of course, weaker. But even if they could, like, recast their guys from exile, I think it would be a good card, because you're cleaning out the board, right? You know, especially in Constructed Late, you're cleaning out the board. It's a great card. But yeah, this card is very interesting. I think it has an incredible strong effect, because if you're playing the card I showed you, right, other airbending cards, you're cleaning out the board, and then your guys can return later, and all have airbending, so they have the new abilities, right? They have some entry effects. So this seems like an amazing pick for white, and arguably I think actually better than the standard Day of Judgment voguing thing. We can clean everything out, because I think I prefer this in a lot of decks. So this is kind of crazy good actually. Now the last card I want to cover, and this card actually really needs to be covered. This card is very confusing. I think so at least. Leave a comment below, guys. But I think this is actually the most confusing card in Avatar: Last Airbender Magic. So it's called the Legend of Yangschen, right? I'm thinking, of course, the first ability there, which is that starting with you, you're forcing your opponent to like remove, then they remove again. It's a very weird wording, and I have to really check out the rules here. But the rules are, of course, then that you, as the player of the legend, removes one of your opponent's cards, and then they have to remove their own card. Okay, I think a lot of people are gonna read this thing and misunderstand it, think it's gonna be like one for me, one for you, but it's actually one for you and then again one for you, which means that for 5 mana, this card removes 2 permanents, right? At certain size level, but still like 3 mana, which is very, very powerful. And then you can like draw 3 cards each, which might be good. But of course, you also return into a very powerful legendary minion. Just like good, double exiling. I mean, this basically means that, when you cast a second spell, you will airbend. A lot of your cards is already airbending, so you're basically gonna be like, I'm airbending and double airbending, right? It's just a great card. But even if you don't even get to her avatar form, right? Yangschen is just a very good card, because again, it removes 2 opponent cards immediately. Even though, again, the wording is very strange, I think. And I think it is, honestly, the worst written card in that sense. I think it's a cool effect. Now I understand it works. But yeah, for first I was like, wait, is it one for me, one for you? And it is better, of course, for like Commander, because then it's like, oh, everyone does it, right? So it's like a weird card, but definitely a very interesting card from this set. An honorable mention, I want to say, before going into the next color, is Team Avatar. This card is very interesting. I think people don't know how this works. So basically, right, this card, either you're buffing one dude, you play that enchantment, and everyone gets stronger for a number of creatures you have. It's a pretty basic stuff. But second ability is discard, do damage based on your number of creatures, okay? This is an instant ability, okay? I'll be very clear here. I think a lot of people get this right. This is an enchantment, but when you play the discard, you can play it whenever you want. And also, this cannot be countered, because you're actually playing it, but you're discarding it, okay? So this actually is a lot stronger than it looks, because you're discarding it, right? You're not actually playing it. So it's instant, so to speak, but it cannot be countered, okay? It's a kind of a weird card, but an interesting card, and I think it's going to be incredibly good and limited. So I want to point it out here, because this also is a good card. Not the best of the top 5, but very special, interesting rule card here. Okay, so now we are at Waterbending, of course, blue. Waterbending is the hardest thing to define, I think. Say that first, because with airbending, right, it's like stuff is being exiled, it's like, here I am, no, I'm out here, this kind of effect, right? The character kind of goes into the fort, right? But waterbending is that you can tap your creature and artifacts, but the actual bending itself can be anything, so it's a little bit iffy, I think, what waterbending is, because it basically is whatever they want to do. But anyway, with that being said, the first card I think that's really powerful, it is called here, Boomerang Basics. So this card, right, is basically like unsummon and so forth. There's a lot of blue cards that will, force one card up to the hand again. But this card here, I think is actually fantastically powerful, right? Because sometimes you want to do it on your own guy to, of course, like re-trigger some enter ability. And if you then do it with Boomerang Basics, you also get to draw a card, right? So if you have like a tiny dude, like Helpful Kitten, or whatever it's called, that is like 2 mana, draw 1 card, right? If you Boomerang Basic that card, you get 1 more card, play it out again, get another card, you get 2 cards, right? So it's very good. If you have the discard guy, it's a discard card for 1 black and 1 random in this set, which is like basically every set. And if you did this guy, right, you can discard 2 cards and draw 1 card, you just have one. So it's very, very powerful. However, very noticeable here, this card is not instant, so you can't save your guy with it. So in some sense, it is weaker than a basic unsummon. But I don't know. I still think this card in like a a good combo has more value. And I think especially if you're playing limited, some kind of arena setting, right? Limited, Prerelease, whatever. Value cards, right? Card that go +1 and so on are very, very valuable. And that's not silly, but the point is that stuff that gives you more value is the most important thing, right? So for example, like I said, like doubling a double discard plus a draw thing, there's like just a massive card difference between you and your opponent, that I would rather have this thing than like unsummon, right? So that I can force you to discard 2 cards, and I still get 1 card, means you are down 2 and I am down 1, and so forth. So it has a lot of like potential there, and I think actually it's one of the best cards in the set. So the next card is everyone's beloved Katara, and I think Katara is very strong here, honestly. I think she looks weak as she is, but she's very powerful in my opinion. So it's a 2/3, right? That will draw you cards if you waterbend, okay? And that sounds pretty weak because it's like waterbending 6 and so on. But her strength, right? Her strength is that you can waterbend immediately. So you play her at turn 3, okay, whatever, that's a 2/3, 4/3, right? That's pretty bad. But if you play her, let's say, turn 6 or 7 or whatever, right? You play Katara out, you can then waterbend immediately. So you tap her, you tap another guy, right? So you get that 6 value, and now then you're getting, you know, a card, and she gets stronger. So it's kind of like this. She's like a really weird card, but she's like very powerful late game basically. Because again, having like an immediate draw effect if you play her out means that she's basically like a free card. You play her out, you draw again, you get another card, right? And she also gets stronger. And you can do it every turn. She's very, very powerful in these like long, drawn out things. And you play a lot of pre-releases and so on, especially pre-releases, many rounds tends to be super long. Because it's a very much like, I play 2 guys, you play 2 guys, I play 1, nothing happens, I play 1, you play again. You can take a lot of rounds, right? It's a very much like a drawn out event. And she can sit there and tap, you know. She can sit there and like tap like once per turn and keep drawing cards. And also, important to notice here, is you can draw more than 1 card because you don't have to waterbend with her, right? Her build says waterbend 6, draw a card. So you can waterbend with 2 other guys, and then her another guy, whatever. You can waterbend infinite times in theory, of course, but you can waterbend, you know, more than once if it's like a really big board and, you know, keep drawing cards. So it seems like really powerful in that context. And but it's a weird card though, because you probably don't want to play it on curve, right, in turn 3. But I think it's a good card because you can play it turn 3. If you don't think has to play, you play her out. You get a 2/3 for 3. That's something. Might block a tiny guy, right? Might be able to hit the opponent 2-3 times. So it's like a really interesting card value machine. I think she's a really interesting card, honestly. No, this card is sick, okay? It's a rare card. It's probably the best blue card. I always say this is straight up the best blue card. I think of all the cards for Limited. Nothing constructed, but it's probably up there still though. The UNAGI of Kyoshi Island. This card is crazy. It is so powerful. It's just like a 5/5 for 5. That's like fine, whatever, right? It has flash, okay? That is very strong. A big body, right, with flash. This means that if you play it on curve, you can basically block anything and kill your guy, right? However, it also, of course, has this like really sick ward thing. So ward is, of course, that you have to pay extra mana to trigger it, to aim it at it, right? And this has waterbending 4 ward, which is very strange. But that basically is a much better than ward 2, because, okay, they can do that and then get it to 0, but they tap all their guys. I think this looks to me a lot better than the common ward 2, right? So this is basically like ward 3, probably. So it's very strong. It has flash, and it has, if your opponent draws 2 cards, you get 2 cards, right? So if you draw more than 1 card, you also trigger that. And it has flash, you can play it out during their turn, and you know you can draw your card. So it's like, it's super powerful. Like, especially in blue against blue, because you punish them. This card is amazing, okay? This card and the next blue card I will show you, these cards are sick, okay? These two are super sick. Then you have this card, which is basically the only card I would say that is probably strictly better than the UNAGI. But this card is also very sick and very similar. They're so similar, right? So honestly, most of what I said with the UNAGI is true here as well, right? Wan Shi Tong also has flash. You can play it out in their turn, block a big dude, right? And your guy wins it. However, this card is sizable depending on how much mana you play, right? So sometimes the UNAGI I think actually will be better. But late game, of course, you can obviously pay more mana and this guy gets better. However, regardless, though, right, you also get to draw cards. This card is so sick, man. It is mythic rare though, but this is probably the best. This is probably the best mythic rare card in the whole game by itself, right? Ignoring color and context and your deck or whatever, I think that Wan Shi Tong is probably the best mythic rare by itself, no synergies, right? Because like if you play 4-5 mana, you're getting a bunch of cards, right? You can block a guy, and then you have this like bird that is like 4-5, 5-6-7 bird flying vigilance. Like, what do you have vigilance for? If only had flying flash, draw 3 cards, that would be good enough. It's like a huge bird, right? It also has vigilance, so it's insanely good. This is probably the best card by itself, right? The UNAGI, though, again, is basically almost as good, right? If you add curve, though, because I would rather probably play actually UNAGI than this card at curve, because UNAGI is right. The waterbending war thing might probably save you some more games, honestly, though. But that's what I mean. Warding is actually very powerful in the game, and that waterbending 4, right? Basically, War 3, I will argue for, is sometimes much more valuable than drawing maybe one more card, right? But late game, of course, this card is much better because you get a bunch of cards, right? And I'm actually experimenting currently, making a full bird deck, okay? It's kind of hard, but to keep here and say I am very much a blue-white guy mostly, right? So I'm playing a lot of the swans, and I love mockingbird and so on. So obviously I'm gonna get for these guys, I'm gonna experiment with them, and I have a lot of ideas for this card. So I love this card. I'm gonna buy 4 immediately. But this is like the best card. Now the last card I want to talk about, Tai Li She Blocker. This is a great card. Yeah, she is great. I like her design. I like the lore. People complained that she was blue instead of red or whatever, but her ability is clearly very blue. But basically, right, she is like an enchantment, right? It's a bunch of enchantment for 3 mana with a very similar ability. You put it on your opponent's creature, and they will not untap, right? She does the same thing. She got flash, so you can play the turn as well. So that already, I think, is just like, yeah, pretty good enough, you know. It's similar to Aang's, you know, the ice thing with, this is like a better version of the enchantment, right? In most cases, because again, 3 mana flash, forcing something to never untap, right? You have 1 blue mana enchantment, forcing them to never untap, which is a pretty basic thing in blue, right? So 2 more mana for flash is kind of where it is at, right? But of course, this is also a creature, a 2/1 creature. That's not that powerful, but she got prowess. She gets stronger every time you play her, right? So I think she definitely will see a lot of playing set to play, because it's just great. She's, again, it's a blocker. She can block something. She can defend. You know, you can play her outright. You can untap their big dude, and then you can block the small dude. Kyoshi dies, but you can block it and you can survive and so on. It's a lot of potential, and she can grow. She can play another spell. You can flash her out, and then afterwards you can play another spell or whatever and get her up and so on, counter spell. So she has a lot of potential. She's also an ally, right? She's an ally creature type. So yeah, I think she definitely is in my top 5 best blue cards. So now we are, of course, at black. I just want to point out that black has a lot of firebending, and I know lore-wise it kind of makes sense, but yeah, it is kind of annoying, right? Am I the only one? Yeah, what do you guys think? It annoys me a bit how, you know, obviously blue is waterbending, right, and so on. Yeah, then these guys are like mostly firebending. Yeah, there's no real black bending. Yeah, there's no real like dark bending, I guess. Obviously, then green later is earthbending. That makes a lot of sense. But yeah, but anyway, I digress. I'm gonna point that out. I find it kind of funny. The first card here, Day of the Black Sun, right? This is a very basic, classic, destroy everything. Not much to say here, but I have to point it out that this is obviously like a no-brainer pick for limited, right? And I still think this card is actually pretty good, or even constructed, and it might see some play there. Because, I mean, this card specifically, right, it kills everything if you pay the X mana, but it also removes every ability, right? So you can still kill them even if they have indestructible and so on. So it has higher value than a lot of other actual destructive spells, right? There are, of course, other versions of this thing that exits everything, like the space thing, and there's not a wild card that is like remove everything and blah blah so on. So there are also other versions of this card. This is not the best one, I would say, but I still think it's a good card, you know, nonetheless, right? Because again, you can kill everything and really kill everything by, again, like, you know, it removes every kind of survivability and so forth. So yeah, it's like a very valuable. The next black card is Ko, the Face Stealer. I find these cards are always very interesting, very powerful. If you play the Final Fantasy set, this is basically Odin, right? It's slightly better, this is better than Odin, but it's very similar. So the strength of this card is that it just kills one thing, right? You know, so you play it outright, you will exile another creature. So you're getting a 6/6 for 6, and you're also like removing their big dude, right? That's why Odin was very powerful in fantasy. Even though you had I win in 2 turns if he hit with you, the real strength really is this ability to be able, right, to like, I go 1+ guy, you lose 1 guy. These kind of cards have always been very, very powerful. And this is exile too, so it's better than most removal. It's a bit rare though, so I get it. So even at that standpoint, this is a good card for limited, like really good, right? Really good for that level. Now, of course, the real trick here is that this guy also then gets the abilities, right? So this is crazy, and this is what I meant earlier in my video intro, right? That this is one of those cards you really need to know exist, right? Especially when you play Constructed, because you're gonna face this card in black, and they will steal your important key card, right? And get your key ability, and your guy dies, and they get your VV, whatever. I don't know if it's bad now, but they get whatever. Like, what? And then this happens, and suddenly you lose, right? So this card is very interesting. I mean, in worst case scenario, right? It's like a pretty big dude, removes your big dude, but it can also steal your ability, and it can be very, very tricky to, you know, get around that. So it's, yeah, it's a really interesting card, and I think it surely will see play. Absolutely. It's very interesting. It has a lot of potential. And like I said, worst case scenario, it's a very high value card. But yeah, it's cosmetic rare, so it's like a no-brainer pick for like next. I really like this card here with Mai. I also like the lore text here, right? You miscalculate. Hello, I love Suku more than I fear you is the one, yeah. It's a great like lore card. I think all of her cards are really great. But these kind of abilities tends to be super strong, okay? This card will absolutely see play in Constructed. It's one of the best new aggro cards. This will be super good in like, you know, black mono aggro cards. Incredibly good here. So basically, right, it's a 2/2 for 2 with first strike, which is always premium, okay? That's a good stats in every set ban. 2/2 first strike. Yeah, super classic stat thing, very, very powerful. And then she takes 2 life every time you play a non-crit spell. She's easily gonna at least cost the opponent like 2 life by removing her, right? But probably more than that. So she's very, very powerful. I think she's arguably the best new black card for actual constructed play. I think so. This is very, very strong. But you know, even in limited, where I think aggro tends to be a little weaker, this is still good because, like I said, 2/2 first strike. That's his previous stats. It's also be playable, right? And she probably will do even more damage to you there. So yeah, I think she's very, very strong. Difference here I want to point out though is that I do think this is a good card of course as well in like limited drafting and so on, but I tend to avoid picking these cards early, right? Because they don't really win you the games in limited unless if you have the perfect aggro deck, right? Because she's just a cheap aggro card. You need to kind of have all the other black cards that to build your deck, right? So this is a card that I might actually be like, you know what, she's very powerful, but that other uncommon card here actually looks stronger for like the whole deck, so to speak. Might be like that. A little tricky when they're very cheap, powerful rare cards. But overall, though, incredibly strong, especially for collected. There are a bunch of these, like, you know, legendary saga cards, and I think some of them are powerful. This one is the most straightforward, like, I win the game kind of card, for limited especially. It's just like, you know, I kill everything, right? You play this dude out, everything is dice. You get the board because everything is removed, right? But this guy, of course, will eventually into this Uber Imba legendary dude. So you remove everything, then you get to do the whole, I will exile one of your things from your hand name, whatever, right? Which might be very useful. And then, of course, it turns into this, you know, very powerful, like, legendary dude with, you know, oh, I can then do this damage or what. So it's just like, this fits a little bit like Ardyn in fantasy. It's a very expensive black card if you get to play it, right? Because it's quite expensive, 6 mana, but still definitely doable in limited. You play it out and you basically win. Yeah, this is very much like I win the game card, honestly. Super strong, super strong. Very powerful. But again, it's a mythic rare card. But this is really fitted one of those cards where it's like, yeah, if you get to play it, you basically win, right? You know what I mean? Yeah, it's like, yeah, I won. Like, it's super good. Then we have Ruinous Waterbending. This is also a very strong AoE card. I mean, yeah, I picked 3 in a row now. Yeah, black has a lot of this kill everything cards, right? But this card is very strong. Very, very strong card. Basically, it's a cheap -2/-2 for everything, and this tends to be enough, I would say. In a lot of situations, right, doing 2 damage, or rather -2, which is better than 2 damage, because if you're -2, they can still go through indestructible and so forth, right? So it's better than like damage to whenever. But this tends to be enough to kill most of the board in that situation, right? And it's 3 mana is usually that premium stat for that. And if you waterbend, you also gain life and so on, which could be useful, right? Because you can waterbend by tapping your own guys. You play the thing out, everything dies, your side as well, which tapped out, and now you get a lot of life for that. So might be good. But probably what you will do, right, is you will attack with your dudes, they will trade and so on, they play this thing and everything dies, and you know, might get some life back. But I think overall, this tends to be really strong. And like I said, -2 in everything, it's definitely better in basically every situation than damage 2, right? And if you look at other sets, you have, for example, in Age of Eternity, you have a red card that does 2 damage in everything for 3 mana, right? So -2 for everything is definitely better, and -2 in attack also might be more useful. You might get if you want to trade, you want to play it before and so on, right? But I think in most situations you probably play it after you attack though, but maybe sometimes you also want to do -2 in their face, right? So overall, it's a great card, and it might even heal you and save you in rare cases, right? Lastly, I want to try out the curveball here, but that's bring up a common card, Azula Always Lies. Also, again, a good lore card, a good name for it. But this card actually, I think, is very powerful because, okay, so doing -2, right, or 2 damage, 2 mana, that's very standard. You can find a bunch of cards, right, to do -2, -2, and so on for 1 or 2 mana. However, this is slightly better. I think people underestimate actually how good this card is, right? Because the thing is that you are giving your opponent -1 and you get +1, right? Which means that you of a difference is 2, so you can trade, you know, like your 1/1 can, like, you know, trade against a 3/3, right? But actually, this is much better. This is probably the best, I think by far, best common card, right, in this set, because let's say that again, you will block a 3/3 with your 1/1, right? You do this thing here. Then this guy is turned into 2/2, you become 2/2, and it's, you know, an even trade, right? So both dice. But if you do it against a 2/2 instead, right? Then that guy is a 1/1. You're a 2/2 now, but it's a counter. It's a counter, right? Other black card with a similar effect will do -, like -2 or whatever, -6 or whatever. But this also gives you a counter, which means that if you do the correct trading, etc., right? When you beat in like a 2/2 with your 1/1 or whatever, that means that you are left now with a slightly stronger dude, right? Where your 4/4 beats a 5/5 and so on, right? So it's really interesting. It's really interesting. It's actually, I think, again, really powerful. Probably the best common card, because you can either, you know, trade up a 2-step, right? Or trade a 1-step by remaining your guy being 1 step stronger, which can then, of course, snowball the game. So I think it is a lot stronger than most of these black cards are for like 1 or 2 mana. So I think it has huge potential, right? And also, you can use buff your own dude, right? In some situations, maybe you want to buff your own dude, instant card, you might win with that. You might buff your 3/3, be a 4/4, do that 4 damage to win, right? You don't have to actually do both things. You can just do one of them if you want to, right? And also, of course, you can just kill a 1/1 guy with it. You can just kill like a 3/1 or whatever. Right? So it's like, no, I think it's actually very powerful. And also for that last one, right? Your opponent, let's say they have a 3/1 out, and you have a 4/4 whatever, right? You attack with your 4/4. You play this king, you buff your guy, become a 5/5. You kill the 3/1, it wasn't blocking anyway, right? So you don't have to do it in a block. You can kind of kill one guy, buff another guy, you know, so forth, yeah. So you can do it. Has a lot of options. Honestly, I think this card is a fantastic common card. Now then, red. I love this card, okay? Combustion, man. It looks badass, love the art. But again, I said earlier, I think that Avatar art looks really great. Great lore cards, you know, great feeling for the show. Where, again, I'm a Spider-Man fan, you know, I have everything Spider-Man. I got Spider-Man, I have like 4 Spider-Man posters, Spider-Man, you know, paintings. I got like thousands of Spider-Man magazines, like all the movies, all the shows, right, all the Spider-Man tasks, whatever. I'm a big Spider-Man fan, but I really hated Back Together, as everyone else. Jesus Christ, no. This Avatar looks really good, yeah, but I love this card here. It looks fantastic. It's a great feeling to it, and I love this ability, this mechanics too. This is a really cool card, okay? So I just want to be nerdy here, but really, the Avatar, I keep saying, the Avatar set here for Magic is just so much better than the Spider-Man in like every aspect, right? But anyway, I digress. This card here is great because it's a really cool ability, right? When you attack with it, you can destroy one thing, even a land, okay? So it's permanent, very important out there. This card even destroys lands, right? In a lot of situations, if it's played on a curve, you might want to destroy the land, right? They might completely, landlock them out of playing the next good card, right? It might be incredibly powerful. However, they can, of course, instead take the damage. So it isn't like a perfect land strategy, but for an uncommon card, to be able to every attack, like force either their big dude or a land, that's rough, man. So they probably will end up just taking the damage, right? So this guy is a very powerful, like, finisher. And I think this card actually is so powerful that we will see it in constructed play, even though it's uncommon. And not like 4 of them, but I can imagine having like a red haze deck, right? Where everything gets haze, and you play this guy on curve, and like, turn 5, you smack them with that. But also, of course, you can play it out with the Firebending, come out later, right? With the whole, they buff themselves to get more mana, right? So I think it's like a really good card, and I definitely will try to build a deck around it with similar cards, because this is a very interesting land card. But in limited, absolutely, super playable, super strong. Then we have Fated Firepower. Now, Fated Firepower is a very weird card, and I had to think about this for a while, honestly, if it's good or not. But the problem is the cost here, right? So you have to play at least 4 mana. It's completely pointless playing this with 0x, unless if you can like move counters and they count or whatever. But not really in limited at least, but no, not even exactly would be good. So basically, you have to pay at least 4 mana, right? But then it's like, okay, this card is like, if I pay 1 more mana, everything does 1 more damage. That's probably isn't worth it. So it's probably around, if you pay 2 more mana, okay? So 5 mana total, and even better play like, 6 mana. But it's probably somewhere around 5, maybe 6 mana to make this card like valuable to play. However, if you have played, say, 5 mana then, right? This card is very interesting. So what it does is that your abilities, like a lightning strike, right, a bolt or whatever, shock, they now deal like the plus damage, right? So they deal like 2 more damage. But your dudes also do 2 more damage. So it's both all your spells and your guy attacking, right? So it's a very interesting card, because I don't think there is that many decks currently in the meta that utilize this kind of thing, right? But if you play like a complete, old school like red deck with only like spell damage, basically, this card is fantastic, right? And a mixture then of like aggressive tiny dudes, and this card is very interesting because primarily, right, this thing is good with double strikes. We have 2 attacks, right? Or a lot of tiny dudes that, of course, suddenly became like 5/1s instead of being 1/1s or whatever. So it has a lot of potential. And I think that overall, even in limited, this card is probably playable. I think the problem is so that it does feel like you probably have to say, right, probably spend at least 2 more mana to make it valuable in limited. So you probably want to play it really late, right? They don't have the card economy for it. So I don't know exactly how to limited, but I think constructed it would be a really good card, and limited it probably is a good card, but it might be too slow in limited because it is kind of weird. You have to have a lot of token dudes to make it. And talking about token, guys, this is probably the most straightforward Ascension card, Firebending. It's a very good card. Basically, you just get one of these, Firebending dudes tries to attack, you get more mana, and every time you do that, this you get a counter, and eventually it doubles that for everything. And this feels really good because it's very easy. You probably will, if you play on curve, you very likely will be able to trigger the counter with his own token, right? And then most of the red guy has this ability, so it feels like that is pretty doable. And if you play this card on like turn 2, turn 3, you probably will get a trigger and you will get very, very good mana tempo of it. So I think it's a strong card. Even late game is still decent. It does something, right? Some of the other bending might not be that useful, like the Earthbending, very late game. Okay. Now, Fire Sage is a straightforward, very powerful uncommon card. This is probably by far the best uncommon card. Definitely Prerelease, but probably overall from a simple standpoint, right? So it's a 2/2 for 2, okay, and it has Firebending, which means that if he attacks, he gets 1 more mana, right? Now, this has the ability to, of course, become stronger. And honestly, especially in limited, these kind of abilities, where you can buff a guy every round, right? Usually once per turn, then this can be a monster in limited, because you sit in there, right, where it's like kind of stall board, and you might be able to buff it like twice per turn for like 3 turns. Suddenly it's like a 5 for 6 or so on. This happens a lot in limited with similar cards, so that's pretty powerful. However, this guy I think is really, really good, right? Because of course, you play turn 2, then you attack turn 3, right? Even if you don't pull a land now, you will have its own firebending, of course, plus the 2 lands you had, right? So you can now, of course, buff it immediately and make it a 3/3 during its attack phase, right? So in worst case scenario, if you can't play any other minion, any other guy or whatever, right, the next turn, you can buff this guy. And then you can attack every turn and buffing it. So this is very strong, because it feels like it's really, really powerful on curve, right? Again, on turn 2. But it's also really powerful late game, because, okay, +1/+1 for 3 mana, it's not that good. But in limited, you know, like I said, you can maybe do it twice per turn, right? So even if you put it late game, you immediately pay it, right? You have like 8 lands out, you pull this card, you buff it twice, now it's a 4/4. Next turn, you know, it's a 6/6, right? So it's like, that is actually pretty easy. So I think it's actually one of the best cards. It is limited. It's going to be the last red card that I think is quite powerful is Ran and Shaw. So first and foremost, right, you have to question yourself, how often do I get these lessons into my graveyard, right? The thing is that almost every new card with a spell is a lesson, right? So this is the avatar keyword, and this is mostly blue that has lessons that are useful for that thing, right? But it also lessons red. So I think it's pretty easy to get, you know, 3 lessons. Honestly, that sounds easy to get, especially if you're playing at least one more color than red, like red-blue, for example, mostly, right? You probably will have 3 lessons in your deck. And if you then play that, right, 5 mana to get 2 4/4s. That is massive value. They're flying too much, so there's good value. They're also firebending, so you get more mana. And now you have, right, this dragon breath thing. If you pay 4 mana, they get +2, right? But obviously, if you have both of these guys out, you have, you know, 2 dragons. They both have firebending 2. That's 4 mana, right? So next time you attack with them, you can pay this +2. So if you have nothing else to play, right, the next turn, it plays the curve, so turn 6 then, right, you have 2 6/4 flying attackers, right? So that sounds very strong for limited. Incredible high value. Super high value. And also, I guess, you might have dragons, you know, graveyard as well, right? Yeah. Like, honestly, yeah, I mean, in constructed, I don't think it's that good, but then obviously you might have some dragons or whatnot, right? So it might be interesting in like a full dragon deck, because it buffs all the dragons. And if you have a bunch of dragons, then you obviously will trigger its ability every time, and then you get this like fire bidding for dragons. So yeah, it might be pretty good. Okay, so this is the last color. I will also, of course, go into, you know, the best gold, the combination colors. But before that, then green. This card here, I think you have to really think about. Honestly, I was like, wait, how did it actually works? This card looks pretty bad for a mythical, I think, at first. And then you realize, oh wait, everything is a land and creature, right? Because at first, I was like, wait, this guy doubles the mana I get from like land and more elves? That sounds pretty weak. But the thing is that this is so good, right? Because now, with Avatar, every land is doing earthbending, right? So every land will very easily become a creature. This guy itself, Badgermole, makes a land into a creature. That means that turn 3, the forest you played this guy with, right, is now a double forest, basically. So this guy is super man-action, right? Because it's so easy now, with the green concept of earthbending, to make all the land become dudes, right? And all the dude lands now are now doubling their mana they're producing. So this guy is insane mana, like incredible mana axing. And the worst case scenario is a 2/2 that also makes you land a 1/1 you can attack with maybe immediately. So it's like decent for 2 mana. It's like, it's okay, right? Like it's a fantastic card. Genuinely, what an incredible mana-ass card. This card we played a lot expected. Yeah, this is obviously the most straightforward card for us. As I mentioned, right, all the Ascension cards are good cards overall, right? Now, Earthbending Ascension is, of course, with Earthbending. As I mentioned, you're making a land into a creature. And this just looks like a really good landfall, right? So landfall is, of course, when you play a land, something happens, right? And this is like, oh, land becomes guys now, and then I play more lands and this thing. So the thing is that, especially constructed, right? There's so many, you know, landfall decks currently, and they work a lot with these like fetch lands, where you sack the land and you get another land, right? So it's like a double landfall thing. This enchantment is like perfect for those things, because then it makes it the land, you sacrifice, you get another land, and when you earthbend, you die, you get another land, it comes back again. So I can see how this can be crazy good, right? In constructed, Jesus Christ, it's super annoying, honestly. But even without constructed, even in limited, this feels like a good card, right? It's like, okay, I'm earthbending, I'm getting another land, and then I have landfall, and then I can give stuff trample. And also, important note there, right? Very important note here. When you landfall here, right, you put a counter on something, right, and give it trample. Doesn't have to be a land, right? So this works perfect in these like Chocobo landfall decks, because you can then give the Chocobo trample, right? So this card is like super good, and we obviously see different Chocobo decks and so on, absolutely. Now here's another crazy uncommon card, Toph the Blind Bandit, right? This card honestly to me looks insane. Like, okay, it's so used like a really strong character, I suppose, but the thing is that, right, the power level here of Toph is based on number of counters, right? Toph power equal to the number of one-on-one counters on your lands, right? Obviously, everything is like earthbending, so all your lands are gonna have counters on them, right? And it's plus the counters. It's not like, you know, per land. It's like the total sum of counters. So Toph can easily be like a 10-3 or something, because like almost every goddamn card in Avatar has earthbending, right? And even without ignoring that, right? Worst case scenario, this is a 2-3 for 3, right? Because Toph makes a land into a counter, right? Okay, so you get a 2-3. And then that land can also fight, right? And then resets one. So 3 mana, and you get a 2-2 and a 2-3. That's like a really good value. Honestly, that's pretty good. That's worst case scenario, right? Worst case scenario. I think the card looks crazy, but sure. It's basically used like a very strong attacker. That is true. It's like a very, you know, a creature with very high attack. But for an uncommon card, this seems crazy. I couldn't think in limited now, but yeah, I think in limited, in drafting and so on, you can have a few of these. It's gonna be insane, because they will basically always be like a 5-3 or something, and you also get Earthbender. It just seems very powerful. We have Flopsie, Bum's Body, in a similar way, right? You talked about everything in this set is like Earthbending. All the creatures are, you know, lands and all stuff, right? So it feels like this first ability Flopsie is easy to trigger, right? You hit all your lands and so on. And then they will reach, you know, like power 4 or more, right? And you can just wipe them out. So it's an interesting card. This is a card you have to be aware of, right? That it might be able to play basically like, oh, you die now because all my dudes get unblockable. Or you can block them, but you have to do these things and so forth. Right? So it's hard to block the bigger dudes or whatever. So it's a very interesting card. It's one of these typical 5... There are a lot of these green cards. It tends to be a green card for about 5 or 6 mana. Usually like this, like, you know, double green and some more. Where you get like, you play this and you win, right? You know, it's very much like if you could play this thing in a standstill format where you have, you know, I have 3 guys, you have 3 guys, I play a 4 guy, you play a 4 guy, you do this thing, and you play this guy, bam, and you win basically. So it's very much like this like standstill breaker card. And again, as I said in the video, this is why I want to make the video, right? Because you have to be really, I keep saying, aware of these kind of cards. That they might have this like standstill is breaker, right? And then you lose the game immediately. Or vice versa, you know you're gonna draw it, you wait for it to come out. So it's an interesting card for an uncommon effect. I think it's pretty good. And again, worst case scenario is like a decent body, maybe buffs a Fury guy for 6 mana. It's not like an unplayable. It's always gonna be like a playable card. Sometimes some of these I win the game kind of cards, right, aren't actually playable. And it sounds weird, but for example, I think it's called like it should be like Ruinous Return, I think it's called in fantasy. It's a similar ability where everything gets like, you know, slightly stronger and trample or whatever, right? It's like buff everything and it's harder to block them and so on. Yeah, it's a very similar card, but that card with Rydia, that is a spell card, right? You don't get her to actually play her, which means that it costs 5 mana, I have my correct now. So it's very similar, 1 mana cheaper, and again, yeah, okay, you're gonna win the game, right, if it's a standstill, as I said, but it's not a standstill, her return card is terrible. You can revive to this, in her you can also revive or do the buff thing. But the buff thing then is unplayable, right, if it's an empty board. This guy if it's a full board, it's basically I win the game. If it's an empty board, it's a 4-4 for a terrible cost, sure, but it's a 4-4. And I think I much rather prefer that than a lot of these cards. They're kind of like, I keep saying it, oh, I win the game, but only if it's like a standstill, right? Otherwise, it just doesn't do anything. So this card overall is probably better. Now, last of the green, we have the Legend of Kyoshi. Now, I think this is actually one of the weaker legends. The red one also is pretty weak, I think, comparable to the white one, for example, I mentioned earlier, right? And this card is interesting, because it either feels like you completely win the game, or it actually is pretty bad, honestly. So, if you get the effect here, right, you draw a huge amount of cards, then you get a big-ass Earthbending, and then everything gets trampled and you win, right? The problem here is that you have to, of course, have a guard out to play, right? If you don't have a sizable dude when you play this card, you basically lose the game in many cases, right? Because 6 mana, it does nothing when you play it out, for actual control tempo, right? So that isn't good enough at all. But if you have like a 5/5 after that, you get to draw 5 cards. And then the next ability is your Earthbend based on your hand size. So if you trigger the first ability in a sizable, way, then this card wins you the game, right? Because her form gives everything trample, so it's again another thing. If you manage to build your board out, and she transforms, you hit with everything, and they're all hexproof, and they die. Right? So this is very much like if you actually get it off, you win the game. But I think this example is much weaker than the black one. Where the black one is just like I just kill everything. Right? The black one has an immense immediate effect that can save you so many games. And even if you only kill one opponent's creature, that's probably good enough to play it, right? With this thing here, it's like you need to have another sizable dude on your board. Then you play this, and then you basically win because you draw so many cards. But even that might be weaker than just killing everything, right? And the white one is I exile 2 guys, and I get this and so forth. So it seems like really, this feels like a lot like a win more card, right? If you already have the lead, then this card is probably on curve. If you have the lead, right, it's like a sizable 5 character, you basically win, right? So it's a little bit weird card, but I think it's slightly better than the red one. Definitely weaker than the other ones, than white and black though. And the blue one also kind of so. And now, of course, we get to the golden cards. So golden cards, of course, a combination of 2 or more colors, right? I'm gonna do my top 5 here, but I probably mentioned a few already well because there are more here, right? But overall, this is probably one of the best ones, straightforward, right? Showed away the beginning, the Aang card. This is, from a constructed standpoint, probably the most playable card. I see immediately what deck will play this card. It looks fantastic, right? It's a 2/3 flying flash. Already at that level, this card is very strong, right? For 3 mana, getting a 2/3 bird or angel tends to be around the size you get, right? But he also has flash, so yeah, Aang is crazy, right? Because again, only having like flash, flying, 2/3 fly, it's just really good. Now, of course, he also airbends, right? So he can exile. This card is crazy good. This card is so good. This is so power creeping. Jesus Christ, Aang is just so good, man. Again, I'm working record, but seriously, right? 2/3 flash flying for 3 mana and blue-white is good enough to play, right? In most decks. But this guy even has like, he airbends one of their opponent's guys, so you remove their big dude and you can block a smaller dude, and he can transform into this thing for 8 mana that'll reach and trample and puts counter. This is that useful, honestly. This is like somewhat useful, I think, the Ocean Fury. It is okay, This is okay, yeah, this is okay. But the general body of Aang is just fantastic. This is probably the best rare in the game, straight up. It's an incredible strong card, like it's crazy, because again, you very much instructed play like 3 removal for 3 mana, right? So he airbends and removes one of their opponent attacking card, right? Is super strong. Yes, he can play it out later, but it's like, come on, this is very powerful. He got flat, you can block his wall. And then you also can throw into a monster, yeah? It's like, it is super good. And of course, lastly, you can also airbend your own guys, right? To trigger different abilities. So, no, this is broken, man. This card is absolutely play constructed. I'm gonna get 4 immediately. I mean, I'm a little biased because, like I said earlier, I'm playing this deck, right? This is the deck I'm playing most, blue-white Blink Flash. So this guy, Aang, he perfectly fits into my deck. But also why I feel confident saying that this is one, if not the best rare card in the whole setup. Because I know how extremely lethal all these combos are. Even without the transformation, right, I would play this card in my mythic deck, absolutely. I would easily play probably 3 of these in my mythic deck. He's legendary, so I'm gonna play 4 for that cost though, but like 3 probably. And even again, without the waterbending, I would play this card, right? So that's just like a cake. I mean, for example, I think Avatar Aang looks weaker, right, for constructed, honestly, because it costs all 4 colors. This obviously is a very much commander guy and so on, right? And he's fine, you know, he got like a 4/4 flying for 4 and so on. But this is like, you have to have 4 different colors, and then you have to do all the different bendings, then you can transform him, sure. This is a badass card, but this feels very much like, you know, for commander fans, right? I actually don't think he looks that strong, because it's so much harder to do it. You have to build your whole deck around it, so I don't think you actually will see much play of this card in constructed or even in limited either, because yeah, 4 mana limited, it's hard to play that. But this is very much obvious commander. This card here feels much more like actually playable, yeah. But anyway, it's going. Now another top card here then for conventional colors is Azula, Cunning Usurper. And of course they do miss all the text there. I know people are like, we should have the lower text down there. But yeah, this card, I love this card. It's very interesting. She has really cool abilities. I just love the whole concept here. But overall, you know, she's a cool card, right? So you play her out, you force your opponent to exile away cards, right? So again, you're removing stuff, which is great. She goes 5 mana, she has 4/4 with exile. You know, it's a good value in that, right? Then, however, you can also play those cards, and they get flashed too. And that's what's so interesting, because you see a lot of black cards, right? They kind of like steal your opponent cards, right? And you can play them yourself, okay? That's pretty common. But she also, again, she gives them a flash, which of course combined with her firebending. So she removes their card, and then you attack them, and you gain mana by firebending. And now you can play them outright if you have extra mana. So it's like super weird. So first of all, she also makes it easier to play the cards she removed. These other black cards tend to remove them, but you have hard time playing them perhaps. And then again, they get flash, so you can play them during combat and so on. It's super weird, yeah. But she has a lot of potential. Definitely super high valuable card. Absolutely a no-brainer pick for like limited as well. Because the Boomerang Unleash is crazy. I love it, yes. It's good. it feels in storyline here. No, but this card is just crazy, right? So 5 mana, okay, trample, it's pretty good. But when he enters, right, you Earthbender 4, so there's a lot of value, honestly, because a lot of Earthbending guys tends to themselves be smaller. He's 2 colors though, of course, so slightly more costing there. But yeah, so you get like a 5/4 plus a 4/4, that's good. Now, however, his second ability, of course, is that when you attack, right, you are now getting another attack phase. But only land can attack. So first of all, I love this card. I think it's funny, man. It's like, oh, I landfall, and I can do double land attacks. Every land does 2 attacks. It's just funny, man. I love the whole idea here. It makes the whole land go crazy and do it twice. But this card definitely we see play. I mean, it's very high valuable. You have to also remember, right, that landfall is interesting because we already have a bunch of land they can fight, right, you know. Without landfall, it's effort. So even without his whole landfall, earthbending and so forth, you have other lands that can transform and fight, right? So this guy's ability will definitely work in like a deck where you have a bunch of different lands that can do stuff. And absolutely, it's a commander deck. I can see it being played too. I have one of those decks back in the days where I played like a bunch of planeswalker and lands. I have no creature and so on. Everything was kind of land fighting and so on. Yeah, it was kind of funny. So this thing is a very interesting card. And I mean, worst case scenario limited, right? Like I said, it's a 5/4 with trample. It gives you a 4/4 land, and you attack twice, right? So it's a lot of value. So definitely. Now this is actually probably one of the straightforward best rare cards, right? Very simplistic. I used to play actually an ally deck back in the ally mill, yeah, blue-white, in Sandiaka. But basically, right, a bunch of card has the ally Kyoshi type, and yeah, he just makes them all, you know, slightly stronger, right? Like whenever you put that +1, this is actually just really good, I think, for a 1-on-1. I mean, you're either gonna see him right in a full ally deck, and that is pretty powerful. But in limited, it's kind of like if he buffs like 2-3 guys, then that's pretty good. And you know, he only costs 2 mana, so this is, again, I think he's one of the strongest, actually, kind of straightforward dudes, right? And you have a bunch of other, of course, ally guys that like, oh, Earthbend based on ally and so on. So I think he can be definitely you can try and build an ally deck in drafting and so on. Maybe not so much like pre-sealed, right, and sealed deck and so forth, but rather drafting, especially if you play arena and when you do the what's called the AI drafting, the cheaper draft, right, against the AIs. Then I think it's easy probably to pick every ally card, right? So then this guy I mentioned earlier, right, Katara, the ally thing here. I think this card is probably not good enough to play in like limited and so forth. I just want to mention the example, right, because I used to play this, like I said, blue-white mill ally deck, right? This thing by like doubling everything can be crazy. So that's like a blue mill card, you mill per ally. This will double it, so I have to rebuild my own ally deck now. But I think this card, if you had the one I showed you earlier, right, the captain guy, yeah, this might be crazy. Like it might go really crazy. If you have them both in the same time, you play hidden turn, it's in curve 3, you get them both, every ally gets ++2, so in theory this might be crazy. But actually the next Katara card here is probably better for limit. We should go this card then, Katara Water Tribe's Hope, right? See, this card is better because she's kind of straightforward. She does what you need to do, right? She's producing the allies. You can of course have both actually, because while she's legendary, they don't have the same name, right? One is the Fearless, this is Water Tribe, so you get them both. But this one here is better because she's creating the actual synergy, right? She's Vigilance 3/3, very expensive though, sure, but you're getting a bunch of guys, right? And then you can water bend to make something stronger and so on, right? But the thing is that water bending is actually quite effective with tokens, right? So if you're tapping a 1/1, you're getting 1 water bend, right? Again, she's producing stuff, right? So yeah, I think it's a very interesting card here. That seems probably better than the other one. But all that being said though, you would probably see decks, right, with both of the Kataras, right? But like I said, you can play them at the same time, the trigger is shorter, alright, so yeah, you probably see them both. And then last bit here on the allies, right, I want to bring up Sokka. So you can really see how the hybrid, the whole mixing color things, seem to be a lot of allies, right? This one is probably the best one though, and the real kicker, because this one is actually creating more allies, right, very easily. And every time you produce another ally with a non-Q spell, everyone gets prowess, so they get stronger. So you can spam a bunch of spells, you get like 5 allies, everyone gets stronger, so on, right? And they all get menace too. So this is super annoying. But I think overall, right, that you kind of want to have all of these cards together. Like I showed you, right? You want all of these ally producers, ally buffer, ally doubling. I mean, you have the other card that makes you get 2 allies to do, and you can tap them, water bending and so on. So you want to have basically all of these cards, right? So this feels very much commanded to be monster, right? You want to have all of them at the same time and put them all together. It probably is very powerful. Here's another complicated card that I have to read like 5 times to get it. No, but this card is weird. It's very powerful though. Hero Grand Lotus, right? So first of all, he makes, like non-lesson cards, which is basically all the other cards outside of Avatar, I guess, mostly, right? They have flashbacks, so you can play them 1 more from your graveyard. That means that this card is playable in like all kind of different decks, right? You want to replay a powerful, sorcery and whatnot, right? But it makes lesson card have flashback, and they only cost 1 mana. So you can basically replay all the lessons, right? Because obviously it's, the master teacher, but yeah, you can replay all the lessons card for almost no cost, right? And this is so much value. So he's gonna be incredibly good in limited. So I keep saying, right, limited is mostly about value. So giving everything flashback, all the spells, right, means you can draw more cards, remove more, and so on. It's just so much value, right? So that's very, very useful, even without the cheapening, right? Then he also makes them pretty cheap. So he also makes them very cheap. Very, very strong. Very, very strong. And then, worst case scenario, he's a 5/5 with Firebending too, right? He also has a pretty good body. I think even he had a smaller body. If he was like a 3/3 or so, he still would be pretty good, man. But, I mean, mostly the value is, of course, the flashback, right, of all your previous cards. So, yeah, it's a huge amount of value. He's so hard to play, though. 3 different colors. That is a weakness, definitely. But immense value. Of the deck, and obviously like commander cards. So we got Toph, the first metal bender. See, these cards always have to be really interesting, especially limited, when you have a card that consistently gets something stronger, right? So Toph then is Earthbending 2, right? This means that every turn you basically make a land 2+2 stronger. So using a like 3 turns, right, it's 6 land, right? Super annoying. And the thing is that this also happens end of turn, which means that you play out a 3/3 for 4, and you immediately, get to plus it, 2/2, right? So you're basically getting 5 stats there immediately for the turn. And you also, of course, have that non-toy artifacts are also lands, so you can earthbend that as well, right? You can earthbend the metal, basically, right? And that might have a massive effect, right, if you have some other creature artifacts. It's a very interesting card. But I think overall, in Limited, this kind of continuous, like, oh, I'm getting everything a +1/1 or +2/2 and so on. It tends to be really annoying because you get into, like I said, a lot of these like standstill moments, right? So, and nothing really happens for 2-3 turns. This thing is then incredibly annoying. Oh my god, the thing is growing, and it doesn't even cost more mana out on the board. So I think this might have. This is very. Now, lastly, I hope you appreciate the video. If you do, please subscribe, smash that like button. Let's look at the last card here. Osai, the Pheonix King. Now, this is one of those cards you will lose games to, absolutely. This is the bomb card, right? The classic bomb card. Oh my god, it costs like 6 mana, but it's so powerful. 7/7, trample haste, firebender 4. So this is one of the cards where you might be in the lead, right? It feels pretty good, and suddenly your opponent like smacks you with like 7 damage to your face, right? And especially in pre-releases, these cards are very much played. Heavy bomb cards, right? Like a big dudes with a lot of stats, see so much play in a pre-release compared to any other format in Magic. And especially if they have like flying or something massive you have to move, right? So this guy has flying and haste and trample. This guy is like, he smacks you and you're dead, right? So you're gonna take this a lot, right? Now, of course, he's a little bit strange. He only gets flying if you have unspent mana, but it basically means that the next turn after you play him, you will have unspent mana. He also has firebending 4, right? So he's like a weird card, but if you play him later, right, when you have a lot of mana, so you have 10 lands, right, then you can play on. Then he has trample, haste, and flying, so you're basically dead, right? If you play it on curve, you won't get all the abilities, but then you still get a 7/7 haste trample dude on turn 6, right? So yeah, this is like the Usai is like the bomb, right? He's like the definition of a bomb in Magic, and I'm sure I'm gonna play so much Magic Arena, and I'm gonna feel, oh, I'm leading, the guy's dying, I have everything under control. And suddenly it drops this guy and he punched me for like 6 damage in my face and I die, or something like that. Yeah, it's like he comes flying at me for like 7 flying trample damage. And you're like, yeah, of course. Like, you're like, yep. So this card is super interesting, but I really mean it. This is like the bomb, right? This is the bomb in the whole set, absolutely. Super terrifying card, and I mean, worst case scenario, right? It's a 7/7 for 6 mana, like decent. He's a big dude, right? Absolute worst case scenario. That's absolutely playable. Was playable. Now, is it good in constructed? Maybe not so much. I think it's a good card as well, but yeah, not super much. But in a limited format, drafting, sealed deck and so on, he's just absurdly good. It's super good here. Because, yeah, in normal constructed, he's basically like a really, really big guy, right? So you could probably remove him when he's played out, because you have so much more removal spells. But even there, he's still pretty good, though. He's a very big guy with haste and trample, so they have seen play, of course. Definitely. And we guys, subscribe and have a great day.